got to tell you, you have to speak up. They tell
Yes.
me.
Dan said that.
Slow down.
Yes, thank you.
All those things together, if we can do it, we've got
All
it made.
right, I will try.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Can you stand it? Oh, here comes 2 or 3 more people. Well, I'll just introduce you. As you all know, this is what we get together now and have somewhere along here. Getting to Know You is the name of our little group. And we're planning on getting together every 1 week to every other week. Twice a month. That's the way it goes. Anyway, we've had some very good guests in the past, and we hope to have more ahead. One of our guests is sitting right there, smiling. Father. And who else? Where's the other one? And Catherine, over there. And now today we have Sister Marie. No, Jean Marie. This is going to be a mess, Jean. Anyway, what? Did they just let something out? Like a bus?
Bingo. Bingo.
Bingo! Oh.
And Kavanaugh.
Well, okay, I'm going to, do you want me to go ahead or what? The first thing that I wanted to say was Jean Marie was born on April 16th.
August.
August. I should know that. It was a few days after my birthday. And 1967.
26. She's just fooling around.
Just get them in our pocket. Yeah, she was born in August 16th, 1926.
In San Juan.
And I was born August the 11th, 1927. See, I don't make a mistake on that one. But anyway, and the thing that's so different with Jean Marie is that the doctor that delivered her was her uncle. And his name was Uncle Ed, Rudy. Isn't that neat? Was that, who was that?
But that's my mother's older sister, Marie, Dr. Rooney, and he was working with that Douglas. A long time ago, there was an airplane called Douglas Aircraft, and he was a doctor for all of them, and our family doctor.
Oh.
They lived in Santa Monica on Alta Street, but they're all gone. There were 16 cousins, all of us. Now there are only 3.
My goodness. Well, the other thing that's kind of interesting is that this birth took place at Santa Monica Hospital. And I just didn't, I shouldn't say that. That must be the mood I'm in.
There wasn't any St. John. I'm so old, there wasn't much of anything.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of. Oh, okay, and Sister Jean Marie also had 2 brothers older and 1 brother younger.
He was born before I was a year old. He was born on August the 11th, before I was a year old. So they called us Irish twins, on account of, well, Father Sean knows why.
Why did they do that?
Irish twins, because in Ireland, they had so many children, one after the other, they were called Irish twins. And my brother Pat and I weren't a year apart, so they just, and we're Irish. So they called us Irish twins. Is that too fast?
No, it's a little too fast, but we'll make it slower. All the different schools that you attended were,
Well,
that was amazing.
The 4 of us learned to read and write before we went to school, because in those days there was no kindergarten. So then we went to 39th Street School, and then Chauncey and Chuck were older. Like Chauncey was 7 years older than I, and Chuck almost 5, over 5. So Pat and I went to school together, and we're always together. So, and then I liked public school, but then in 1937, they built transformation school, and I had to go to a Catholic school. And I did not like it. It was so different. In public school, when you finished all your work, you got to go to a room called an opportunity room, and you could draw and paint and all kinds of good stuff. But in Catholic school, you just got more work. So I didn't like it. Besides that, the sisters, they were different. But anyway, that's...
Be sure to keep that in your mouth. Be sure to keep that to your mouth.
Isn't it full of germs?
No, I don't know that. We'll find out. She likes it all. I don't know what's the matter with everyone today. Anyway, I asked Jean Marie to tell me something about the nuns. I really didn't know anything about them. But she started off with they're divided into two groups. The sisters are social workers, and the cloister was all the nuns. And sister...
Well, there are two groups of religious women. One is called nuns, and they're a cloister sister, and they spend the majority of their time in prayer, and of course they do work to support themselves. And the sisters, like the Sisters of Umbrella, we're active women, and we have, of course, our prayer life, thank God. But we also do social work, like teaching and nursing, and what the sisters do, and like there's a community called Good Shepherd Sisters, I think. Is that right, Ethel? Ethel, Good Shepherd Sisters. And they take care of people. So we're called, usually they call us all nuns, but in reality, the nuns are, well, I always thought more special, but anyhow. I want to tell you something because Pat asked me to. When we were little kids, my dad was from Arizona, so he used to, he rented a truck, because there were four of us, and we went to Arizona from Los Angeles. And of course, there were no like cold drinks and stuff. I'm talking about like 1930-ish. And so, and what?
Little slow.
Oh, too fast. And so anyway, my father had a tarp over the back of the truck, and he always got a case of pears, because if anybody remembers, in those days, you couldn't get a bunch of Cokes and put them on ice, because it was just kind of... So anyhow, we had the pears, and Pat, he was about 4, because I was 5. And he wanted to get a pear, and Daddy was driving along in the truck, and so Pat called out, and he went on the tarp to get to the pears. And a wind came and picked him up and threw him onto the curb. But he wasn't hurt. It was fun because John C. and Chuck and I saw him fly away, just up in the air, and he bounced onto the curb. And of course, by the time John C. got Daddy to stop, Pat was way down there. He was sitting on the curb like this. It was really cute. It was an exciting adventure for us when I was about 5.
Wow.
But it really was. We always remember it. And my uncle called him Fall Out of the Truck Boy.
Another interesting thing that she mentioned was the changing of the habit. I remember my connection with seeing Catholic nuns and sisters, and they always had the long black robe and the hats, and it just looked so neat to me. But she had the story about how they changed those about.
Well, in our community, we have an evolution, I call it, of the habit. I got pictures here. The first habit was established in Spain, in old Spain, way back in the 1900s, 18-something, 1872 they came here. But anyway, the coif wasn't starched. But at about the 1915s, they started starching the coif. Now, the sisters have it, the white thing they wear around their head, comes down their neck, is one piece, and you pin it at the top, and that's called a coif. All the sisters wore those, different styles, different shape, but it's one big thing. It reminded me always of a football outfit, but anyway, you pin it up here. And the band was stiff and it went around your head, and tied in a bow in the back. And that was the coif and band. And then the next thing, of course, was the veil and the habit. So our first habit was a long serge purple dress, almost touched the floor. And then the scapular, the black scapular. There's brown scapulars, you know, that you make your first communion, and white scapulars. Well, this was black. I don't know why. No one could ever tell me. Death, I guess. But anyway, there was a scapular, and then we wore the dolars, not the rosary, the dolars. There's $7 for Blessed Mother. It's sort of like when they're called $7. Incidents in her life as a young woman and as a mother that in Christ's life that hurt her, like when she took Jesus to the temple when he was lost, when he carried his cross, when he died. They're called dolars. We wore those at the side. But as the habit changed, I can picture, then the first thing that got changed was the coif. It was no longer starched. And then it was put a white veil in. Then they got very risque. The next habit was your hair showed. That was really a big thing in our lives, your hair showed. But the dress part stayed the same. But the coif was not stiff. It was soft and kind of folded under. And then the next daring thing was a blue dress, and then after that, just a habit. And then we voted to wear light blue and light material in the summertime, and the darker blue in the winter. That was the evolution of the habit. And when they changed and had their hair show, they stopped wearing the dolars. And to tell you the truth, I was in Canada with the long habit, 5 years, and it was pretty dreadful in the sense that when you walked just out of the yard, it got all wet. And of course, we're talking like in this late 50s, there were no air conditioners. So you had to iron your habit dry, and it was a real nuisance. So in our community, we had a bulletin, and I was forever writing, you've got to do something about the habit. But I didn't think they were going to secular clothes, so they kind of falsed me there. But anyway, it was a big, really a great change. I think the reason that we voted for a habit and not secular clothes in my community is because we think that the habit witnesses, like St. Francis said, speak the gospel always and use words when necessary. So if you're wearing a habit, everybody knows, if they think you're crazy or not, that you believe in God. So that's why we voted for the habit. And I brought pictures of the changes. And I don't know if you have any questions, but and people always ask about the undergarments. We wore like a t-shirt. And to tell you the truth, the shorts we wore remind me of my tennis shorts before I entered. They were kind of bulky. And there was a big pocket on the side. So big I put a baby kitten in it one time. The rest of the clothes were the same. Okay.
I think that's wonderful. Do you tell me how many different schools you went to, or how many different schools you went to?
Oh dear.
In studying or what?
Well, I started at the day after profession. I was 19, and I was really excited. And I got the 3rd and 4th grade at Motherhood Council because Sister Lucy wasn't feeling well, and I'm just totally delighted. The reason I've not ever been really much afraid of things is because of my 3 brothers. We used to hop freight cars, and when we were little, they'd slow down. If we live in Los Angeles, the freight cars would slow to unbuckle boxcars. Then they'd pick up the engine, they'd go home and grab the ladder, and then swing up and ride the boxcars down to Crenshaw. Well, Crenshaw was the end of my life when I was little. There was no more civilization after Crenshaw, but there was a pie company there. We used to get pies. Anyhow, so I was not afraid of things because they did, so I did it. They even put my Pat and me in. Do any of you remember tires a long time ago? They had inner tubes. They were rubber, and then there was an inner tube. Well, they used to take out the inner tube and put Pat in one of them, our feet and our legs, and me in another one, and roll us down the hill to see who would win. So, I mean, I was used to spooky things, so it didn't bother me. Anyway, after I got the class,
Yeah.
I was end of the school, and they gave us some cards. They were library cards. We were supposed to get the children to give us back the library cards. So I had the cards, and I thought, this is a joy. So here's the first one. I say, Robert Louis Stevenson. Robert Louis Stevenson. Don't be afraid. It's just a library book. And I should say the third time, I think, Jean Marie, you idiot. Because Robert, of course, that's the author of the book that came out. That was my first experience, and making a super faux pas. But lots of them afterwards. But anyway, it was an experience I won't ever forget. The next school after that, youth school, I went to Immaculate Conception. I had 64 children in the second grade, and Mary Immaculate had 101 children in the first grade. The classes were huge. Well, you can imagine how fast they grew. When I was in the 8th grade, there were 20 in the Catholic school, and that I would have been, at that time, 13. So, like 11 years later, the Catholic schools were inundated with people. That was because the war and all that business. And the next school after that was San Pedro, the 5th and 6th grade, and Latin. The Latin teacher decided she didn't want to teach the boys. So the mother called me to the office. She said to me, Jean Marie, you took Latin, didn't you? And I wanted to tell her, actually, no, it took me, but I didn't. You didn't do things like that, So I said, yes, mother. She said, well, you're going to teach first year Latin in San Pedro. I said, well, I had the 5th and 6th grade. Yes, this was just being the morning before school. I didn't know what you meant before school, because if you're teaching, that's school. But anyhow, you just do it. You figure, well, God asked you to do it, so He's going to help you do it, and of course He does. And after that, I think I went to Cathedral Chapel, and then, oh, that was funny too, if you have time. It's really a lark. I had this boy's name, it's David Blue. He came from progressive school, and he jumped out of his seat and was running around. He said he was a B-19. That's how long ago there was an airplane called B-19 in those days. And he was flying around the room, and I didn't know what the world to do with him. So we didn't hit kids or anything at MacArthur. So I thought, hot diggity dogs. So I opened the closet door, and I said, David, honey, here's your hanger. And he flew in, and I closed the door. That was the end of him. But at 2:30, when school was over at that time, the chauffeur came to get him. And he knocked on the door, and he said, I came for David Blue, he hasn't come out yet. And there he was, asleep in the closet. That was another wild experience.
Does anybody have any questions at this point about her life?
Please don't tell me I talk too fast, I know. Yes?
What was your biggest happiness and your worst disappointment? There's 2 questions. What was your biggest happiness and your worst disappointment?
My biggest happiness was, obviously, besides when I was as a sister, when I took my vows. I will never forget that. And there have been so many things. I can't think of any big sadness. I mean, there have been lots of them, but you see, it's kind of different. God is there, so you get upset, but then I can't think of the biggest unhappiness. Perhaps when the community split up, that was sad, but it wasn't really. I guess I'm very selfish. I was always madly in love with my family, and when one after the other died, those were kind of hard for me. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? There we go.
Sister Jean Marie, what's the favorite snack food you have up in your room?
The crucifix. Oh, it's
I say the snack food to eat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said statue. I don't hear very well either, besides not talking well. Oh, gee, of course, white Zinfandel and crackers and cheese. Crackers and cheese. They're my favorite. And then after that comes a cookie with peanut butter and covered with chocolate.
I'm sure that if anybody gets hungry, you just need to knock on her door. Even though she doesn't eat it.
Well, you see, it's the doctor does not want me to lose weight. That's why I do it. It's a health. It's just for my health. It's not for my taste buds. I'll catch you later, Thelma.
That's the Moyer boy.
Ethel?
No, way back.
Ethel.
Ethel, go ahead, Ethel.
Ethel?
Sister Jean Marie, how old were you when you got the call?
I think I was 12.
Wow.
It is, well, you can never explain a vocation. Like, a man can't explain why he married this girl, and a girl can't explain why she fell in love with that guy. You can't explain love. But it was just something about, and I know to my mother, when I was quite small, I was not going to look for a man because she got the best one that God ever made. And I don't know, I think it has to do with, to me, it has to do with love. And I think that I always, it's very selfish, I always want to be loved. And the only one I have always thought who can totally love is our Lord. So it's kind of selfish for sure. I didn't become a sister to serve, which people do, which is lovely. I had one compliment from my second oldest brother. He told me, Janie is a waste of talent. And my mother and father didn't want me to enter until I went to college because my daddy said that I was immature, which he was probably true. But you see, I was so moved by the different experiences of being, I thought, drawn, that if I didn't go then, I would get involved in college, because I like to get involved in things, and the mystery, or whatever person wants to call it, for me, was mystical, might evaporate. I think it doesn't make any sense, but it's like not in words, like you cannot explain love. Like all the people who are married, you can't explain why you picked Grant. Not really, it's just called love. And Father Sean can't really pick why he chose our Lord. Right? His journey wasn't because you won the money. Is that okay, Ethel?
Yeah, that's perfect, thank you.
Poco.
And you're loved a whole lot here, sister.
I was just gonna say,
You are loved a whole lot here.
But you see, when you're little, I don't realize at that time that God cherished everybody. I learned that. I just wanted to keep it to me.
My husband is raising his hand back there.
Yes, sir. Grant.
Where did you learn to dance?
What is that? What is
Where
that?
did you learn to dance? Because
I had 3 brothers and I was their guinea pig. So I danced with them. And then, of course, in the convent, at Alpine shop, we did a lot of dancing. And generally I had the lead. And we had quite a lot of fun in the convent with dancing and tennis, whatever. We just had a grand time. But that's where I learned at home. My mother and my father danced all the time. My mother played the piano and sang, and my father was so madly in love with her whenever she wanted to do anything, he'd do it. So that was. But Chuck went off to the Marines, and he was killed in Korea, and Pat became a Franciscan. And Chauncey got married and had 3 children, and got divorced and died.
that's her 2 brothers, the older brothers. And the younger brother was a priest, wasn't he?
Yes, a Franciscan, but he died, he lived a long time. He died at 82. He was on, what else?
Well, I don't know here. Anything else that
Time for the big
tickles your fancy?
What else? Oh, when I was in Immaculate Reception, that's when I was first ever principal. it was kind of a mistake, I guess, but anyway, we didn't have a mascot. And so, it was just dreadful. So I was telling the 8th graders, you guys, you've got to get a mascot. There's no school that doesn't have a mascot. So a couple of days later, these 3 boys brought this little black kitten to school, this big, and it was really, really cute. And of course, the sisters, well, I shouldn't say of course, but it was of course. They didn't like the idea at all. We didn't have pets. So we kept him in school. And Father Richard, God rest his soul, used to take care of Lucifer. Well, then I got sent, I forgot to tell you, I went to Alaska to do bushwork all the time for 7 summers. Bushwork, they fly you in a Cessna, either the Bishop or you go with the mail plane, and they drop you off, and you're asked to take a census to find out how many Catholics are there and whatever. Then the Bishop flies back, hopefully, to pick you up after a week, or the mail plane. But if you're in Alaska, you probably all know that the weather is unpredictable. So sometimes you'd stay 2 weeks. So that was a lot of fun too, because I flew in, of course, as a sister, and they called them grubbies, jeans and shirts and boots, and went around. And so then you prepared the people for the liturgy when the bishop came back to say Mass. So lots of them, you could always find a guitar player or 2 in a fishing camp or a lumber camp. They're always there. So they would learn these different ditties that I would ask them to learn and sing, Catholic or not. And if you're away in the boondocks, and there's any kind of entertainment, whatever religion, you could be Buddha for all anybody cares. You're going to get involved because it's something that's fun. So then we'd have the Mass for the bishop when he got back and fly back home again. That was 7 summers of that.
You said to me that you had during 7 following summers, you did bushwork in Alaska.
Yeah,
That's where you're talking of now.
Bushwork is just taking a census. And the reason they call it bush is because, well, it's really bushy. I mean, that's why I couldn't wear my habit. I tried, but the girls are the ones who brought all this stuff. I didn't have any, because we never had secular clothes. So they brought jeans and everything. Because you feel you can't walk. It's not, of course it's probably changed by now. And very, very, yeah. But when we go on, and also we taught, one summer I got Matt Cumberland. He's now a priest. He's the pastor in La Fuente. He came with me, and we had the school going. But we did just whatever, in bushwork, whatever they need to have done, you do. So it's very interesting and very creative, and you meet lots of beautiful people, just lovely people.
That's nice. Let me see. And you have listed here quite a few schools that you taught in, and I was interested in the size of your classes and the length of time that you were.
Okay. Well, in Mac Conception, 2 years. The next year, I had 56.
Put that to your mouth.
San Pedro, I was there 2 years. 6, let's see, it was a double class, so there would have been close to 60.
60 students in a class? That's a lot.
Oh, I know. But see, in those days, it's different. The children had mom at home. Now the mothers have to work. And so if your mother's at home and she's there taking care of you, she'll say, now you do what sister says and blah, blah, blah. And so, and then I had a veil. I think I would not have lasted probably not even a week in public school because I don't know what it is, but anyhow, but the veil is mystical. Oh, I can tell you something funny. When I was at Cathedral Chapel at my 4th assignment. I was, I think, 22 or 3. And anyway, I told the children that they have to behave themselves or whatever. And then some boy said, but I go home, my daddy will protect me. I said, oh, but I don't know, because sisters can turn into witches at night. And they all flat, like a piece of paper, really flat. And I can go right, it was terrible to do that. But it was so much fun. So I said, go right under the door, under the bedroom door, and get you. So it was so funny because a couple of days later, this little boy's dad said, sister, please, he said, I couldn't get to my boy's room because they pushed blankets and towels, and so you couldn't get under his door. He was so afraid I was going to get him. Anyway, it's just lots of fun doing things and teaching. But yeah, but I was in San Francisco and South City. And I did my thesis, one of them, it was called Reading Readiness for Mexican American Children, because at that time, the IQs in most all schools, you would take children to the first grade, they're given nonverbal and verbal tests, but the little Hispanic children would be fine on the nonverbal. Then the verbal, of course, they flunk out, and it bothered me a great deal because they only needed like some kind of recognition of words in English, like in the classroom. So it was all stats. So it took me 3 years to prove the point I was trying to make. So I was working on that in the summer at the cathedral, and that turned out to be quite an interesting experiment because it was very well received. But then the sister in charge of our education decided to go into what it was called, it's where they teach children to tie their shoes and stuff. I said, that's so dumb. Hispanic children have burritos at home. They learn all that stuff at home. They don't need it, but anyhow, they went into the bilingual, which I don't like.
I went into what?
Bilingual program.
No, bilingual.
Bilingual program, I thought, my personal opinion was that the children who are Hispanic can pick up, for example, in a couple of schools I had little children from Europe. And nobody taught them in German. They learned English. And at my conceptual rights principle, by the end of November, all the children were very comfortable in English. There wasn't any bilingual program. And in every single year, they would go to a Mac Heart or Loyola. They never flunked out with low grades. They were competitive. And that meant a lot to me as a teacher, that the Hispanic children would be competitive in school. So the bilingual program held them back. I still think it does. But, let me see. Oh, then I went to the jail ministry too. I was principal for 16 years in various places. And I'm sure they're glad I went to the jail ministry. But anyway, I was apprenticed. My brother, the Franciscan, was head chaplain at CJ. CJ is Central Jail in Los Angeles. And he told me they needed to open a jail in Yorloma, and that's up by Lancaster, Avenue 60. And so I thought, well, great, big change. So I went to Sybil Brown to apprentice with Sister Dorothy. That's the women's prison. And to learn how to, whatever. And it was very, very interesting and very, very moving emotional experiences for me. And anyway, then I opened the place in Lancaster, and it was for hookers and paper hangers. Paper hangers are girls who write checks that bounce. I don't know why they call them that. That was, and then let's see, it was on Monday, Tuesday, I would go to CJ and teach scripture, and that's where I was very moved. These are very young, most all black and some Hispanic men, young boys really, would come in. And I know right well, if they had a mother and father, like we, all of us have had, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be, but everybody needs support. Everybody needs someone to tell them they're wonderful and tell them they're the best they're ever. And when you don't have that, then like you get involved with guys because they're all the same. They're such beautiful young men, and it was kind of hard for me because I get very emotional about things like that. But so I would say, I'm coming back Tuesday. Abby's there, Sister Abby's there. They would all come. It wasn't because it was it was because they got a chance to get out of the cell, of course. But for me, I think it was a better experience for me than it was for them. I'll always pray for them and treasure those young men. I think a lot of them probably made it. I hope they did. I hope they have families and happiness. But it's hard. It's a very severe problem, and it really hasn't improved at all. Oh, I'm sorry, I got off. But that was, I was 3.5 years in the jail ministry, and then our mom got sick, so I was going to go home. And then the spirit general said, well, you would just go be with your mom. This is funny too. My mother said, her name is Lucretia. My mother said, Jeannie, she said, I want you to be with me, because I don't want them to find me dead in bed 3 years later or 3 days later. But she said, you can't stay here all day long, I will go crazy. So she said, you have to teach. So I got a job at Mary Starr High School, teaching English and church history and scripture. And I was there from 87, I think, to 93. Our mother passed away in 93, God rest her soul. And then I went back to the convent and went to Christ the King. And I had math and English there and 7th grade homework for about 9 years. And then the convent began falling apart, and Father Ansel came, and off I went. 2005, I was the end of my... Oh, I also taught preschool with the Korean children. That was fun too. That was the end of my career.
Sounds like a great one. Anybody else have any more questions?
Probably, when are we going to see the video?
Oh, we do have a little secret here of one of her wishes that she could always attain. Do you want to tell them about it?
What?
What?
Your video.
The skydive. Oh, the skydive. Oh, well, yes. Because of the way I grew up, I've never been much afraid of new things. So anyhow, I've always kind of wanted to skydive, or those gliders, just anything. I wanted to do the bungee jump too, but I broke my back, so I couldn't do it anyway. So for my 90th birthday, my nieces and my nephew, a bunch of the family, they thought Jeannie wants to skydive, so they planned the skydive. So it's called Santa Barbara Skydive, and so you go to Santa Barbara. But the dive itself takes place at Lompoc, and that's if you go up the Ventura Freeway, when you get to you know that, what is that? The P place. The P place, where there's that P Sloop place.
Oh, yeah.
Anderson's P Sloop. You turn right, you go to Solvay. You go right and go to Solvay. You go left and go to Lompoc. So it's I know it's there. It's that camp for the they were going to do the what's it called? But he has a big camp there with soldiers and stuff in it. And so it's kind of laid back because mostly quiet senior citizens, just my speed. But anyway, that's where the skydive was. It was quite lovely. Because I've been in Cessna lots of times in Alaska. You fly up in a Cessna and you have your choice of 18,000 or 13,000. But the 18,000 costs $100 more. So I know my family paid $100 more, so we took the 13,000. And you go up in the plane, and then a couple of the young people are learning how to be skydivers. So they went off first, and then went up some more, and then the man, I was sitting on my foot, so I couldn't get my leg out to jump out. So all I did, the door opened, and I was out. And it was a delightful experience.
I hope they told you how to do it. I can't imagine.
It was everything I expected. It was loads of fun. They call it free fall. You go straight down for 1 minute, and your cheeks go like this. It's fun to watch it because but you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking of what it feels like. You cannot explain it. Just so like effervescent or something like.
Do you go with anyone else, or do you just go by yourself?
Oh, it's called tandem. There's a creature with you.
Yes.
His name was Steve. I'm not sure of that. They gave a certificate so you can prove that you've done it in case people don't believe you. And if you're 90, you better keep the certificate because they don't want to believe you. That's what was. And I went to bungee jump, but I broke my back. And then I don't think after the skydive, going up in an air balloon would be fun at all. So that's the end of my wildlife.
Well, sounds pretty good to me.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
All right, what's going on? You going skydiving?
Absolutely thrilled to do it.
Are you nervous?
I don't think so, because you're going to take care of me.
Perfect.
I would be. I would be.
All right.
going to take care of her.
Yeah. All right, well, you ready to do this?
Absolutely.
All right, high five.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. All right, we're getting up there. How you doing? How was it?
Terrific. Just
Good?
terrific, yeah.
You can stand up.
Okay.
There you go.
That was terrific.
You love
I
it?
loved it.
High five.
High five.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Job.
It really was.